We got it. We did it, Lubie. We came through.
We did. Thank goodness.
Wow. I mean, that could not have been more exciting on Friday night. That was the
like
Panthers victory. You know what it reminded me of? It really did. It reminded me of that whole Nick Wallenda thing when he was going over the Grand Canyon there in the tightrope and they misgauged the wind. And all of a sudden you get like the Santa Ana winds are kicking up and they've made their way over to Las Vegas. And this guy's trying to balance himself. Now, he was sort of attached to the thing. So it wasn't like he was going to go into the bottom of the abyss there and fall like 1,500 feet. It was kind of treacherous to watch as he was praying to God. And as we've often referenced, probably the most unusual aspect of that whole telecast, but it was that Joel Osteen was assisting from a mental standpoint, supposedly Nick Wallenda, as he went out there, and he was giving him confidence. And for many God references, like, oh, God. And he's in the middle of the Grand Canyon there, not looking too sure of himself, wearing a pair of like ballet slippers and holding a rod. But I think Joel Osteen was having his rod held by Wallenda's wife.
Oh, yeah, you're fine. You're fine.
Keep going, Nick. Keep going. See, Joel Osteen, I mean, he's very good at what he does, I have to say. He's very good at what he does. True. When you watch those lectures, you start to believe that, you know what, maybe Jesus can come and save me. But I don't think so.
I don't know. That's a long shot.
The time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
Good morning. As I am coming to, hopefully you've come to, whoever's out there, whoever is watching now, listening now, and in the future watches and listens to the Defo Show without Defo, with Lubie right here. You can always find us, just Google the Defo Show. Also doing things with 5 Reasons Sports yesterday. Ethan Skolnick joined us. And each and every day, for the most part, on the Believe Network today, I have an interesting conversation with a woman getaway driver who was a getaway driver for the Gambino family and then also went on to be a woman stunt car driver. I didn't even know that existed. So I'm really, Georgia, really excited to talk to her later today. And that will be Georgia Durante, something I'd never heard of. I didn't know there was a women getaway driver. So that's freaking cool. So Georgia will be joining me today on the After Hour Show on the Believe Network. I am here this morning. There is a ton going on in the world of sports. It's funny. The Miami Heat just ended their season. The NBA Finals hasn't started. And the Heat world, fans, media have already moved on to the next phase, looking into the offseason. And Devo makes fun of me because I like the offseason. And it wasn't always a big deal. And it was the before the summer 2010. Like, remember once 2008 hit, the Heat, you could tell the Heat were sort of gearing up. The Cavs were gearing up. The Knicks, who were constantly gearing up for the offseason, were all gearing up for the summer of 2010. It was like it became this huge deal. And that was the first time that the offseason mattered more than the regular season. Like Steve always talks about, well, when did that start? It wasn't my whole life. No one cared about the offseason. The baseball had the hot stove league where like the offseason was a big deal for baseball. But NFL was never big with transactions. And the NBA was like never. The reason they had to institute bird right rules because eventually people kept trying to leave their teams and the idea was to stay with your team. But the majority, the offseason was sort of boring when it came to sports, professional sports, until that offseason. That offseason sort of opened up the floodgates. And the NBA, first it was LeBron, then it was Kevin Durant, then there's been Kawhi Leonard, like all these guys that had won titles or were close to winning titles and could get your team to a championship and possibly win. And now the offseason for the NBA is a big deal every year. Yeah, we haven't had the Kevin Durant, LeBron crescendo, but if you're the Miami Heat, as good as you were getting to where you got, there's a lot of questions in the air. And to me, they're positive. Now, we talked with Ethan Scoop Skolnick yesterday, and he was, what's good about Scoop is he defends the Heat, but he's also honest. So whenever I get really high, Defo loves having him on because he brings me down. If I get too low, when I thought the world was ending and the Heat had no shot at recovering, Zach Lowe It's now 3 years ago, going into that Jimmy Butler year, it felt like they were screwed. They had all these bad contracts they couldn't get rid of. Why would a star come here? LeBron had left and supposedly trashed the organization. They had no future. They were capped out, and they weren't making the playoffs. So it was like, okay, good job, Heat. You should have tanked. Well, they somehow convinced a disgruntled, and what we found out is he wasn't disgruntled. He is a competitor guy, and competitor guy needs a certain organization and a certain surrounding. Well, Jimmy Butler and the Heat were a perfect match. So Jimmy Butler was considered to be disgruntled. He was not seen as a superstar. The Sixers, he was their best player, but he was seen as the third guy, even though he was the reason that they were in a Game 7 and almost beat the Toronto Raptors, who went on to be the champions. The Heat, it felt like everything was done. Everything was over. Well, no, it wasn't. They revitalized everything, went to the finals that year. The playoffs got swept last year after just being exhausted. And then this year, we're back in the conference finals, one shot away with 20 seconds left from being back in the finals. Okay, for eighth time? An eighth time? They've been to the finals 6 times. Yeah, they've been to the final 5 times. So that would have been their 6th NBA Finals appearance in the last 20 years, which is astounding for an organization that was middling until Pat Riley came in the mid-ish 90s. So the offseason is always interesting with the Heat because Pat Riley likes to go big game hunting. But when you have a team like this, where injuries were such an issue, if you can get everyone in shape, you don't really need to go big game hunting. Like, Oladipo wants to be here. Yes, he showed he can play, so someone will offer him some money. But he made it clear he wants to be here. Before he got here, he transitioned from the Magic to the Thunder to the Pacers to the Rockets. When he was on the Thunder, he wanted to be here. He goes to the Pacers and then becomes a guy. Look, Oladipo was a 2nd overall pick. Like, Oladipo out of Indiana was supposedly the next Wade. And then in Orlando, where it seems like now, since Shaq left, it's a place where good players go to, meander. He sort of was Then he goes to the Pacers and becomes then he goes to the Thunder and becomes a legit player, but not an all-star. He became a guy, Westbrook's running mate, but what was he really? Then he goes to the Pacers and becomes an all-NBA player. He becomes one of the best defenders in the league from the perimeter and an offensive force. A guy that can shoot 3 pretty solid, but get to the basket, facilitate, and a legit all-star. And I think he was like a 2nd or 3rd all-NBA team. Like, Oladipo became a top 20 player. Then he got hurt. Goes to the Rockets. Dealing with injuries. Wants to be in Miami. That whole time he wanted to be in Miami. He gets to Miami and has been dealing with injuries the entire time he was here. Finally, he's healthy, but hasn't played in 2 years. Really healthy, at least. So his offensive game's off, but his defensive game was spectacular. He was their 3rd best defender, and at times their 1st best defender. Because as we know, Bam's really good defensively, but Bam goes in and out. And Butler's great defensively, but at some point the guy's knee gave out. Oladipo was a driving force defensively. And now he's healthy. So now you give him a whole offseason to work on himself. What could he be? People thought he was done. Well, he's late 20s, early 30s. And if he's healthy, why can't he be something special? Kyle Lowry came over. Was a guy that I guess was a questionable acquisition. I didn't question it. The other people they went after got more money. Like Lonzo Ball, who is the guy they wanted and became really good with the Bulls, got a lot of money. Like, they couldn't pay him. Lowry got a lot of money for what he is, but you had the money to spend and you needed a veteran presence. He just came over out of shape. He was on that James Harden life. Okay, why can't he get back in shape? Why can't he be motivated? So these are the questions that arise with the Miami Heat. Yes, the NBA Finals hasn't even happened, but of course we're looking to the future. At 7:35 will be joined by Dave Hyde, a man who I presume looks to the future a lot when it comes to sports because he's been covering Miami sports for the last 30 plus years. And for that first 10 was probably interesting. You had the Dolphins who were consistent every year. You had the Heat coming on board. So that was fun. The Marlins came around. The Panthers came around. The Marlins and the Panthers in the 90s won. The Dolphins were knocking on the door with Marino until he left. So it was probably fun, that first decade plus for Dave Hyde. And then the last 20 plus years have been a total atrocity outside of the Miami Heat. So, but even with the Heat, it's funny, even with the Heat who win now, we always still look toward the future because, wow, how much more can they be? How much more can they be? And then they were when they had the big 3. And now they're revitalized. They've transformed back into this reiteration of the Miami Heat. So we look toward the future, even though the the present just became the past. The finals hasn't even started yet. It starts tomorrow. And that's another thing I'd like to talk about. And we'll have Sean Devaney on tomorrow. Also kicking it old school. Of course. Can't forget kicking it old school. The one and only Tony Segreto. Thank you to Texas Roadhouse and Catholic Health Services. That's at 8 o'clock. Ed Garcia, Mr. Texas Roadhouse, is back with us this morning. So happy to have Ed back. And he's a traveling man. He does so much. He's regional. He's so much when it comes to Texas Roadhouse. And we're happy to have him with us. He's a big sports fan. And we appreciate their support. Also, Catholic Health Services. I, knock on wood, haven't had to deal with him yet, but Tony's worked with him. Defo's had to deal with him with his family. They do the kinds of things that when you have an issue with your family member or yourself, is a big struggle, and they make communication imperative. And that's not always the case when it comes to health issues. So really appreciate their support. And they are huge sponsors of not only the show, but of Kickin' Old School with Tony Segreto. Again, that'll be 8 o'clock. Dave Hyde joining at 7:35. The future has been all we've had with South Florida sports. The Canes, they're going to get back. Going to future, get back. That's actually been the moniker. The Dolphins going to get back. The Panthers going to get back. The Marlins going to get back. That's what we've been for outside of the Heat. It's funny. The first 10 or so years of my life, my teams won. Like the Heat at least knocked down. The Heat at least went to the playoffs with the Kevin Lowry thing. The Canes won a lot. My Knowles won a lot. The Marlins were in the World Series within 4 years. The Panthers were in the Stanley Cup Finals within 4 years. Like I got used to my teams being contenders. So this last 20 years, it's been really tough. The Knowles have had an up and down. The Marlins have been horrendous. The Canes have been horrendous. The Dolphins have been average. If you don't want to say horrendous, but an average to horrendous. And then you've had the Heat, thank goodness. So we are so entrenched in looking in the offseason that I'm already there. So Dave Hyde will join me. We'll talk about the playoffs. We'll talk about the injuries. We'll talk about what now and then what then. And then, of course, we'll talk about the Miami Dolphins. That's the other future that feels now. It's very interesting how people are talking about the Miami Dolphins. And look, the AFC is scary. It is. You now bring in Russell Wilson from the NFC to a division that already had Patrick Mahomes, who is still the best quarterback in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers right there, and then I guess Brady's still there, which is psychotic. That division also had Justin Herbert, who is every Dolphins lament. I still don't know if Herbert's as good as everyone wants him to be. I still don't know if because he's finished with the same or worse record than Tua. His stats actually are better, but they have a worse defense, so they were down in games, so that would elevate his stats. So I think Herbert's legit. Don't get me wrong. I liked the kid coming out of Oregon. That's the funny thing that I'm Mr. Tua. I like both quarterbacks. Tua was better in college. Tua had more to work with. Tua, his coach, which is as excited Kings fans are with Cristobal, he did nothing to elevate Herbert. He literally ran an offense that did nothing for Herbert, but make Herbert look worse. So we didn't see what Herbert could be. I like both guys. If the Dolphins got Herbert, I would have been very, very happy. And I was I was ecstatic getting Tua. I think Herbert's a legit talent. I think he's really good. They put him in this MVP cluster. I don't know. I really don't know because he's had enough on offense that they should have been able to make it to a playoffs and have a winning record. And they, 9-8? Like, his record's not better than Tua's. And he's had way more to work with than Tua. So, but you have Herbert that everyone's anointed. You have Mahomes. Carr, who everyone forgets, was a big part of a team going to the playoffs. And they almost won if their coach wasn't weird and was smarter, honestly, who's not their coach anymore. So you already had that. You then bring in Russell Wilson, who's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. Like, people may say top 10. I don't know what you do with Russell Wilson. He was not happy in Seattle. They had given him weapons on offense, but their defense was dreadful, and they couldn't run the ball really well. So it was a Russell Wilson show, and he put up good stats. So people forget about Russell Wilson. He's a top 5 quarterback to me. I put him above a Watson. Like, there's a lot of guys people thrust into the top 5 that I think Russell Wilson's better than right now. So that's one division in the AFC, let alone the AFC North. You have the Steelers, who have lots of talent and are trying to figure out the quarterback situation. The Browns are going to bring in Watson. Oh, by the way, Watson now has a 23rd lawsuit on his hands. And all these women are very loud. They're very consistent, telling very similar stories, but not the same story. And HBO Real Sports just did a whole thing on Watson. And it's very, what's interesting to me is when it's pretty clear you did something. What you did, we don't know. It's pretty clear you did something, especially when you have tons of people coming after you. Bill Cosby, Darren Sharper. Watson is not to the same scale. It's not to the same level of alleged crime. Like, no one said he raped them. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying these are different. There is a differentiation between a Cosby and a Sharper, but there's tons. It's not like 3 or 5. Or when Jameis Winston has issue, it was one woman. Still, you listen to the woman, but I'm just saying, when you have 20-something and Cosby 40 and Sharper like 30 to 40, like, you feel like there's something there. There's something there. Okay. My favorite is when the alleged assailant is defiant. Look, you can say I'm innocent. You should be able to defend yourself. But to just throw out, well, these women have no... I mean, there's 23 now. And I think there's more. Only 23 wanted to get in the lawsuit. This woman wasn't. There was only 22. And she saw the HBO Real Sports where Rusty Hardin, the lawyer, who we know the lawyer of all lawyers, he's defended Roger Clemens. He's Mr. Sports guy who probably did something, but you're allowed a defense in America, so which is a big part of America. We should all get a defense. We're innocent until proven guilty, even though that doesn't happen in the court of public opinion. But our justice system, for whatever its flaws are, is a huge tenet of why we have this life we have. Outside of free speech and freedom of the press and freedom of religion, these are reasons why America is still great. I don't know if it's what everyone thinks it is, but it's still great. And Hardin, attorney, defending Watson, fine. Defend your guy. But trying to intimidate witnesses, trying to totally slam them, the victim that has proof, and there's a lot of them, to me, is going overboard. And it's going over the top, and it backfired because it pissed this woman off enough to join in. And there's more than... We've heard way more allegations than 23. But 23 are now in the lawsuit. Watson just signed to over $200 million deal, and right now there is no penalty. There is no suspension for Watson. So he hasn't played in a couple years, so we don't know what he is as a player, but when last he left, he had a ridiculous year for a team that had no talent. So you bring him into a division that has a Steelers that is really good, that has the Bengals that were in the Super Bowl. People like me think they were flash in the pan and they have some talent, but I think they'll come back. But still, they were in the Super Bowl. And then you have the Ravens, and whatever you do with Lamar Jackson in the playoffs, the dude has won an MVP, and that team, the way they're ran, with the talent they have, the way he is hard to stop when it comes to the regular season, at least, that division is insane. Then you go to the South, and you have the Titans, who were the number 1 seed last year. Yeah, they were overinflated, and they're not the same team. But, they've lost Brown, their superstar receiver. So, and we know what Tannehill is. No matter what they've tried to make him out in Tennessee, we know what he is here. Believe me, we know what he is. So, but they're still a playoff kind of team. And you have that division sort of like the Jags and the Texans. But the Colts are a team that, to me, were as good as anyone if they had just figured out the quarterback situation. Wentz was supposed to be that. Now they have Matt Ryan, and whatever you want to say about Matt Ryan, he has a loaded offense, a loaded defense, and a great offensive line, and a good coach. So that team is definitely a playoff contender. And then you go to the AFC East, where it's the Bills and the Dolphins. Okay, so the AFC is a monster. And I just spent like 6 minutes telling you, well, you probably know, monster. But of those teams I just mentioned, yes, the Chargers added on defense and have a legit offense. Yes, the Raiders added on defense, have a legit offense. The Broncos already had your defense, and now just added the quarterback. To me, the Dolphins are right there, talent-wise. So I'm very curious. We've had John and Jimmy. We usually have them on Mondays. Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. Dateline Dolphins Mondays with Jimmy. It's the offseason, so we're off for now. But when last we had him on, the last 2 times, he was very definitive of he thinks the Dolphins will be better, but the AFC is so strong that the Dolphins will be lucky to get 9 wins. Well, they got 9 wins last year, and the AFC was good. So the AFC is better, but they're better. I think they'll win 10, 11 games. I'm very hopeful, which is not me. Anyone who's listened to us and watched us over in a month, it'll be 12. I guess, in a month, 3 weeks, it'll be 12 years we've been doing shows together, Defo and I. I'm not Mr. Hopeful. I hope for my teams, but I'm very negative. I'm a South Florida fan. I'm born and raised here. We're very negative. So for me to be this hopeful is not the norm. I don't know what the Dolphins are going to do. especially the last 5 to 10 years. I've sort of mailed in having the hope-o-meter. Like, I'm just like, yeah, come on. Gase, after year one. Philbin, Sperano, like, where's the hope? Flores, I had a little, because it seemed like the discipline was there, the culture had changed, the defense was vastly improved, but the offense was a disaster, and I never felt it was going to get better. So I was with him. McDaniel seems to be different. He has a personality. He has some charisma. He seems to be transparent as you can be as a coach in the NFL. And he's buddy-budding with the players, whatever that means. I don't know if that's good, but it feels like we heard a lot of that from Pete Carroll. I've talked to Marvin. We used to do a show with Marvin Jones, who was under Pete Carroll when he was a DC, and he loved Pete Carroll. And we heard that from his players, for the most part, with the Seahawks and with USC. So the guy that rah-rah is a good coach, creative, but also one of the guys, maybe it's a good thing. The Dolphins haven't had that. Gase wasn't that. Flores wasn't that. I don't think Philbin was that. I don't think Sperano was that. So this seems like a total departure from their past hires. Maybe it'll work. I don't know. I just have an interesting feeling about the Dolphins. And I think Tua, who's gone from having no people having confidence in him, no talent around him, no offensive line, no run game, no creativity on offense, very old school way of thinking in every regard. To this world, I think he's going to be a kid in a candy store. And I think we're going to see the Tua that, or as close as you're going to see the Tua that was at Alabama. And I'm really excited. And I'm curious what ends up happening, because it feels like there's a lot of negativity around a team that has so much talent. Oh, this is it. This is it. Okay. Like, and shouldn't it be? Shouldn't it be it? Like, they gave him everything. Like, it's like people think he should be upset that he got everything. No, he's been waiting for this. Like, he's been yearning. Like, who's mad that they got help? Oh, you helped me. Screw you. Like, well, this is it, Tua. Okay, thank you. Like, it should be it. Like, he got talent around him. Who you could put freaking Cleo Lemon with this team, and they should at least be fun. Like, let alone anyone who's an NFL quarterback, and Tua's definitely more than that. Tua should be considered. So what he's done with nothing as a franchise guy, if you don't want to say he's elite, fine, but he's a top 15, 20 guy. That's a franchise quarterback. I don't know if it's elite, top 10, but I mean, come on. So you have to think with help from not only the front office, but from the coaching staff to the players on the field, including the offensive line, it will help him. He'd be giddy about it. So yes, I think this is it, fine, but it's cool. I think he's going to excel. So I'm excited about the Miami Dolphins. The Panthers, when we get to Hyde, we'll talk about them a little bit, because I'm watching the Colorado Avalanche, and I know no one gives a crap about hockey. Even when the Panthers started to play well, no one cared. They were going to have to get to, like, here. Like, if they had gotten to the conference finals and were playing like a Rangers or a Carolina or the Lightning in the conference finals, like if they had gotten past the Lightning and were playing the Rangers in the conference finals, I think fans will finally care, because of the New York view of it, the New York attachment to it. And then they're in the conference finals. South Florida fans, even if you don't care about hockey, you know what that means. So I think we'd care then. Of course, we didn't get there and got literally swept by a team that has become our nemesis and the team of our in-state rival. But I guess they're a rival now that we can't beat them. The Tampa Bay Lightning. So people don't care. I get it. But I do. When the Panthers are competitive and in the playoffs, I pay attention. And then we had the bet with Mike Mayo, so that made me care more. Made Defo care a lot more than me. I was rooting either way. The second round, we didn't have the bet, and I still was rooting just as hard. Watching the Colorado Avalanche, all season long was the Panthers Avalanche, neck and neck in the standings, neck and neck in everything. As much as the Avalanche scored, the Panthers were the better offense in the regular season. Panthers were behind them all year, somehow gutted it out and beat them to have the number one seed in all of hockey. And all the Panthers did in the playoffs was struggle, and all the Avalanche has done is look amazing. Last night, they were up 7-4 with like a couple minutes left. Somehow with like 4 or 5 minutes left, somehow the game ended up 8-6. I don't know how, but it didn't matter. The Avalanche, like that's the thing. The Panthers, even when they were up, I was nervous the entire time. Between the net mining, between the defense, and most importantly, the scoring. It's funny is you can't say the Avalanche's goalie's doing a good job. He gave up 6 goals, or he gave up 4 goals, whatever he gave up before anyone was out. But it doesn't matter. Like, you trust their offense. The Panthers had the same Panthers had just as much, if not more, talent than the Avalanche. Like they do and did. And the Avalanche just are on it the whole freaking game. And the Rangers, the same thing. The Rangers get down in series, and they're like on it. Panthers have the talent. Like, that's why when people are like, oh, you can't switch it up. You can't? Look at the Avalanche. Something is happening with them where they play the same way every game, even including the playoffs. Panthers had the same talent, and it was night and day from regular season to playoff. To me, that's where the coach comes in. Like, it was if, and they weren't. Consistently, they weren't. And that's an issue. That's where we will talk about the Panthers with Dave Hyde, who's coming up next. Non-South Florida, but the Aaron Donald thing I find it interesting. Like, it's come out, Aaron Donald wants an extension. He deserves it. He's the best defensive player in football and has been his entire career. And if you want to give it to Brady, fine, but he's probably the best player in football. And he's paid like 102nd in the league and like 20-something at his position. I don't know. It's a 20-something what he paid per year. I don't even know where he is at his position, but I'm sure he's not number one. So he deserves more money. He's 31. He's been in the league 8 years. He now won a title. He's already locked up being a Hall of Famer because he's been multiple Defensive Player of the Year. So he said he'd be cool retiring. He wants to be there. He wants to win. He didn't see his career going on for too long, but winning Super Bowl is giving him that taste to want to keep playing. But he's got to be respected. And we know how you're respected in the business world is money. That's it. Power, money, power. They go hand in hand a lot of the time. Sometimes they're not the exact same thing. But for the most part, especially in sports, they go hand in hand. And he deserves to be paid. He just does. Now, the Rams are freaking cash strapped because they paid everyone. So they may be okay with losing him. I don't know what their defense would be without him. I know, look, as good as Ramsey as I love the guy. And the talent, all the talent they have on that team, and they have legit talent elsewhere. It's not just Donald. It all goes by way of him. Like the stuff he did in the Super Bowl to Joe Burrow was ridiculous. The stuff he did all playoffs was ridiculous. Like the way he's able to crash the pocket from the interior makes it so much easier, and it's so much more effective. No matter how much of a running quarterback you are, if a guy comes up the middle, you don't have time to run. So what Aaron Donald does, no one does in the league. And you have plenty of great players, TJ Watt, plenty of great dudes in this league. They're not AJ Watt, once upon a time, Von Miller, his former teammate. Aaron Donald helped him win a Super Bowl. No one's Aaron Donald. So, but I find it interesting, the idea of throwing out retiring. People believe it. Because back in the day, people threw it out outside Barry Sanders. You didn't believe it. You're like, you're going to keep playing. Aaron Donald, I actually sort of believe it. And this new era of player, we saw the Niners lose half their defense a few years ago. And they retired. And all those guys did retire. Patrick Willis retired and never came back. Never even thought about coming back. The money's so big now. I find this interesting, the retirement thing. Before we go and bring on Dave Hyde, we'll talk about this. Jim Sarney, I'd be remiss. I never heard the end of it from Defo. Yes, Coco Gauff, South Florida's own, beat out fellow South Floridian Sloane Stephens in the quarterfinals yesterday of the French Open. She moves on to the semis, 18 seed, 18 years old. It feels like she's got to be in her 20s because we heard about her the last couple of years between Harvey and Defo making runs. Well, she's back in the semis again in a major, in a Grand Slam. And I think it's a Grand Slam, I think, in tennis. But on the men's, that was to the detriment of Stevens. She's out. So Gauff will be in the semis. And on the men's side of things, you had a GOAT versus GOAT as Djokovic and Nadal went 4 hours. It's interesting to go that long and only have 4 sets, but it was very contested, a highly contested match. Djokovic got outlasted by his elder, Nadal. It is a French. This is where Nadal shines. Record French Open titles. Nadal moves on. Defo's guy, Alcaraz falls to Zverev, who was a higher ranked guy. So Nadal will have another big match in his semifinals. So we have the French Open moving on. We have a South Florida influence with Coco Gauff. So I'm sure we'll talk about that with Dave Hyde. Always a lot going on in the world of South Florida sports. So coming up next, we'll talk about the Heat, where they are now, what he saw, what's going forward. And I'm sure we'll touch on the Panthers. It's funny, the one team we don't mention is the one team playing still in South Florida is the Marlins. They had, I think, the worst May in their history. And Jeter's gone. Whatever buzz was there, Aang was an interesting hire because she is a woman. And it was the first GM, I think, woman GM in American professional sports. So it was cool to see that hire. That's gone by the wayside. They have good pitching, but their hitting is not good. It's not consistent. And their bullpen, they've lost more one-run games than anyone. That's bullpen. And they had a lead in a lot of those games, and they gave it away. So they've done all these things to turn around the organization under Bruce Sherman and Denbo and formerly Jeter and Eng, and they're the same organization. They're a joke. They made the one playoffs in the weird year. They won a round. They lost the next round, and they couldn't win 70-something. Like the over-under was 70-something. We thought they'd come off that playoff run and be great. They couldn't win 70-something last year. Like, the organization's a disaster right now, and it's funny. We are the one show, one content creator, whatever the hell we are, that tries to talk Marlins and tries to talk baseball. Whatever the hell they're putting out there, it's not easy. Like, it's not, and I don't know when it's going to change because they did try to change it. They now have pitching where before it was hitting with Ozuna and Yelich and Stanton. It was hitting and Realmuto. Okay, well, they needed pitching, so they got rid of that. They built up the farm system. They now have a ton of arms in the big leagues, in the minors. Yeah, arms, which is supposed to be the thing. Oh, now they can't hit, and they drafted guys that are supposed to be able to hit and still aren't there hitting, and they make trades for guys that are supposed to be able to hit, and none of them can hit, and they can't attract a big bat. The guy that they brought in, Marte, who they wanted to keep, they couldn't pay him enough to keep him. So it's gone the other way. We've done a 180, and still we're in the same spot. Wonderful. So that's why we don't talk a lot of Marlins, and we probably won't. But coming up in a few minutes, the one and only Dave Hyde. Big thanks to everyone tuning in to me. Defo is in Italy. I have heard from him. He's alive. He's well. Mike Mayo. He's not at the Venetian. I think he's moved on. He was in Venice. He's moving on to, I think, Florence, Tuscany, or Rome. I think he may do Rome first and then Florence, Tuscany. It's the same thing. Tuscany's a part of Florence. But, or Florence part of Tuscany. I get confused. And you can make fun of me. I'm not great with geography. I got great grades my whole life. The one lower than a B I got in all of college was geography as a freshman. So I know Florence, Tuscany are connected. I know one's the bigger part and one's within it. I think Florence is the bigger part and Tuscany is a part of Florence. That's what I think. I was there. My wife would annihilate me for this little inner dialogue. But Defo's there. He's having a great time. I haven't seen anything about gambling. He's enjoying the wine. He's enjoying the food, enjoying the people. So you have me for a few more days solo. We will talk with Dave Hyde next. And at 8 o'clock, it is a Kicking It Old School Wednesday. But not only Tony Segreto will join me. Thank you to Texas Roadhouse and Catholic Health Services. More of the Defo Show without Defo, just Lubie. Right here. Next.
Poker is your game. You're covered in style. And you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in the Plantation location because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
Catholic Health Services is committed to care that changes as your needs do. Our full continuum of services is designed to be there throughout your care journey. If you need assistance with daily living, post-acute care following a serious health event, or additional medical care at home, we also offer skilled nursing and palliative and hospice care. Your care needs may change, but our commitment never does. Catholic Health Services, South Florida's #1 choice for post-acute and end-of-life care. Visit CatholicHealthServices.org.
Mr. Pentangeli, were you a member of the Corleone family? Did you serve under capo regime under Vito Corleone, also known as the Godfather?
I never knew no Godfather.
Mr. Pentangeli, you are contradicting a sworn statement you previously made to me and signed. I ask you again, sir, here and now on the road, were you at any time a member of a crime organization headed by Michael Corleone?
I don't know nothing about that. Oh, I was in the olive oil business with his father, but that was a long time ago, that's all.
We have a sworn affidavit. We have it. Your sworn affidavit that you murdered on the orders of Michael Corleone. Do you deny this?
Look, the FBI guys, they promised me a deal. So I made up a lot of stuff about Michael Corleone, because that's what they wanted. But it was all lies. Everything. And I kept saying, Michael Corleone did this, and Michael Corleone did that. So I said, yeah, sure. Why not?
It's now time for the Defo Show.
Morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you're watching, listening to us. Welcome back to the Defo Show without Defo, just Lubie, now joined by someone who, not many rise above the greatness that is Defo, but this man, at least in our books, does. A man who's been up for many awards, many Hall of Fames, and we presume is syndicated, and even if he's not, we're going to say he is. The one and only Dave Hyde joins me today here on the Defo Show without Defo with Lubie. Good morning, Dave. How you doing?
Lubie, you're going solo. Good for you. It's about time you had your own show, you know?
Shh. Defo thinks this is my dream, and he doesn't. I'd love to do my own thing, but this show is not the same without the one and only Jeff Deforrest. But we muddle along without him. We talk a lot more sports and a lot less gambling. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it is what I do. What Defo doesn't. All right, let's get right to it. And I talked a little bit with you yesterday on Mike Mayo's Lunchbox, and we'll transition it to here. Do a little bit less what was and more what will be, but get the postscript at least, because I read a couple of your articles about it and seen the article that I don't know if it was today or late yesterday about Kyle Lowry. So definitely a lot in the now and the future. But what did you take away from the Eastern Conference Finals with the Miami Heat? What was your big takeaway from that series?
Jimmy Butler again is carrying the team, the franchise. You know, when he is great, they gonna win. When he struggled, as he did, you know, he averaged 9 points for 3 games there in the series. They're gonna be run off the court. They're not a lot of enough help really around Butler, but they were one shot away from the NBA Finals, and that's a pretty successful year in most any book.
What do you do? Okay, it's funny because Jimmy Butler, when he came over, was a disgruntled dude, and we found out it wasn't really disgruntled. He was just frustrated, and he needed a partner and an organization that was built like the Heat, that believed in winning over everything and putting aside everything for winning. And that's where we haven't seen disgruntled Jimmy really often down here in Miami. But he still was never considered, and he still is sort of not. I mean, he wasn't on any of the All-NBA teams. But to me, when I look at postseason, big game, not even big moment, but just big game, big series, there's only a handful of guys I take over him. Like, I don't know where you rank him. Is he top 10? But when it comes to big game, big moment, to me, outside of maybe LeBron and Giannis, Steph Curry, like, to me, Jimmy Butler's put himself, that's at least what this postseason did, was 2 years ago, wasn't a fluke. Jimmy Butler is a superstar, and you really can't consider him anything less.
Yeah, I think the bubble, you know, the pandemic season when they went to the finals and he had the great playoffs was the first really coming out where you said, oh, okay, there's a lot more there than you saw at the 3 previous franchises. And then last year was a bizarre sweep at the first round by Milwaukee of the Heat. So this year confirmed again what you saw, you know, a couple years ago in the playoffs. And you know, now he'll start getting that attention or the acclaim of, okay, in a big game, he's up there with pretty much anybody. And you know, it's taken to this point to wipe away the first, you know, what happened in Chicago, Minnesota, and Philadelphia, where he's known to be a good player, but also a guy who had trouble with teammates and everything. And you know, that guy's still there. You saw that blow up at the sideline. But this, the Heat organization has brought out the best in him and allowed that to materialize. You've seen it in big games, what he can do, and nobody thought that way of him when he came here.
So often in a loss, and you were giving Mike Mayo a little guff yesterday, you thought he was being negative. Mayo, and he actually, with the Heat, is the one organization he gives credit to because they've won while he was covering South Florida sports teams. But like, the Heat are the one organization that win down here, consistently do it. To me, when a loss happens, usually you're negative, right? Especially with the Dolphins. Oh, there it is. There it is. Another playoff loss. There it is. To me, this was a success because whatever moves they made in the offseason, they weren't the moves people wanted. People wanted Alonzo Ball. They wanted a big splash. They wanted to bring in Bradley Beal. Kyle Lowry was questioned. Tucker and Morris questioned. You didn't get Oladipo or Tucker you can get Oladipo or Morris to play the entire year. Yet they made it to one shot with almost their entire roster hurt of the finals. So to me, it's nothing but a success. And I feel like there was a lot left for next year. I actually feel a lot of hope. Talking with Ethan Skolnick, it's brought me down a little, but I look at a guy like Victor Oladipo and Kyle Lowry, and as much question marks are there, I do see some positive twists. Like Victor Oladipo didn't play all year long and was their third best defender, and at times their second or third best offensive player for a guy that hadn't played in 2 years. So that means the health, it seems, is there, a full off season to work on his offensive game. If he can keep him, he's intriguing. Kyle Lowry is a guy that sort of went after the James Harden school and looks totally out of shape. But is it age or out of shape? To me, the Heat are usually good at getting guys to go around and motivate them. There's a lot to be there with Lowry and Oladipo. I know you have an article today about Kyle Lowry. What are your thoughts on those two guys moving forward for the Heat? And am I just fooling myself thinking there's a lot more positive than negative with those guys?
Well, I mean, again, a team that's a shot from the NBA Finals. There's positive there. There's questions too. Yeah. Who is Lowry? Is he a guy who got old this season? And I mean, he had no impact really, or was he just hurt? And was being hurt, the hamstring injury, a product of his conditioning? Because he was a wide body there. Now he's been a big body for his career. So you have to be careful with that a little. Tyler Hero is hurt too. Yes. And so, there's questions. The question is who's Kyle Lowry going to come back as next year? Is he going to get in shape? Is he going to realize, okay, I'm turning 37 by the next playoffs? And that's a battle not many people win in sports. And so is he, Pat Riley has a line, the older you get, the more you have to put in. And Dwayne Wade was staggering through injury after injury, it seemed like. Really until his final season, the last few seasons he had, starting with the big three. But his final season, he played 72 games, and he talked about how much time he spent in the trainer's room getting his body ready to play. And that's not everybody wants to do that. So the question is, where's Kyle Lowry at? Does he want to? Because he's got 2 years left, 2 expensive years left on his now. As far as where the Heat go, there's Duncan Robinson. I'm sure they're going to trade him or try to trade him, and there'll be a market for him. A shooter in this league in this era. He's going to make he made 16.9 this year. Yep. Million, not cheap, but there'll be a market for him. And the question is, okay, do they throw in a number one, and what can they get for that? Victor Oladipo, I think he's going to be a hard signing, it seems, for the Heat, just because where the salary cap is and what could be his market will be interesting. Which is too bad because the Heat marketed him back or helped him back to health. Yeah. And you'd like to see. He has an interesting game, and if he can stay healthy, a big upside. But getting back to his All-Star game, but it's going to be an interesting off-season. Do they need a big move? They don't need one. They're right there. They're right knocking on the door of the NBA Finals now. Will one present itself, though? That's always the issue with Pat Riley, because he's not afraid of making big moves.
Well, and that's the thing is the guys that they're rumored to get are both under contract. Like Mitchell is disgruntled and Mitchell's disgruntled.
Right.
I mean, the Jazz went backwards and there was no reason to. They should have beaten the Mavs. They were. It felt like they were never even in that series because Mitchell's not happy. I mean, it's clear he's not happy, but he has yet to say, I want out. Same thing with Beal. Beal can't be happy. I mean, the dude is averaging 29 a game for 3 years straight. And he's grown his entire game and they're not winning. So obviously he's not happy, but he hasn't asked out. So that's the whole thing where for fans to start doing the wishing and hoping like it's 2010 again. I haven't, because neither of these guys is quote unquote on the market, not even the trade market. And outside of that, there's a lot. Look, we saw growth from Hero and Bam this year in the regular season. Bam continued it defensively. We still want to see more of Game 3 and Game 7 of Bam. Hero fell off a cliff even before the injuries. So we wonder, can there be more growth? Same thing, can you keep an Oladipo? Same thing with Lowry. So there's so many questions there. I'm not assuming that they need, like you just said, a big name. But again, Riley doesn't like resting on his laurels, and they lost to the Celtics in agonizing fashion, and he hates the Celtics. So that's what's great about this team, where the other organizations in South Florida sort of let you down. This team always surprises you pleasantly. So I'm leaving it open for the Heat, because you just never know. Like, who thought they would have got to Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals when you signed Kyle Lowry, PJ Tucker, and Morris in the offseason?
Oh, I thought they'd be a tough out. Now, I thought Milwaukee really was still the team, and you look at injuries. We talk about injuries with the Heat. Milwaukee had their second best player got hurt, and that changed their trajectory. So you have to factor that into, okay, are the Heat moving forward? Are they one of the three best teams? Probably, but they could easily lose the series before if they get the wrong matchup. If they play Boston in the second round or Milwaukee in the second round, a healthy Milwaukee. So and you like to hear some of the things, though, that came out of the Heat yesterday. Tyler Hero talked about, I need to get stronger.
Yep.
That's my number one. And the fact he's already looking at that and recognize it, knows it, and is making that a prime goal is that's good for where not only he's going and then his career is going, but for the Heat too.
Dave Hyde, not only renowned sports columnist, but author, swagger about Jimmy Johnson, or involving Jimmy Johnson, or with Jimmy Johnson, biography about Jimmy Johnson, will be coming out later this year. We will talk a little bit about swagger, because I presume we'll talk a lot about it going forward, as we love talking to this man, and we're really giddy about the book, especially with our connection to Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill and our connection to the Canes. So we will definitely continue to talk about swagger. But you said it's funny. It's why the Heat loss isn't as deflating to me as the Panthers. And not that they not only went to another round, it's just how it felt different. Like the entire series, they kept saying we can do more, when you knew physically they couldn't. Like Jimmy Butler couldn't do more. The dude played 45 out of 48 minutes and 48 out of 48 when his knee was a disaster. Like, he couldn't do more, but he felt like he should have. The Panthers, it was the opposite the whole time, whether it was the Capitals or the second round. Well, we were just scared and nervous. Like, scared and nervous? You're the number one seed in all hockey. What the heck are you scared and nervous after the first 5 minutes of Game 1? Like, I watched the Avalanche play, and I'm like, why didn't the Panthers do that? Their goalie's not playing better than Bobrovsky played. They gave up 4 goals last night, and 6 after I'm sure they removed the netminder. Like, it's just to watch the way the Panthers went out was very deflating, because to me, they had the talent. It was the quote unquote intangibles that felt tangible. Like, watching them play, it felt like you could actually touch the idea that they were not all in the way that they should have been. Yeah,
in the playoffs, you look for a team to take that step forward. Okay, here's, it's not 82 games anymore. It's this is what, we're going for the title or going for the series or whatever. And the Panthers, even in the Washington series, they rarely got to the game you saw in the regular season. and there's yes, playoff hockey's different. Defensive, Washington set up a defensive system, and Tampa Bay was, Tampa Bay is 2-time defending champs and going for a third time, so they're very good. But the Panthers didn't really, until the last game, really compete with them in the series, and that was a disappointing part of going out the way they did. You didn't see the game of the regular season, much less that game with taking a step forward. And so, and then the talk of that they're nervous, and it was just weird. It was a weird dynamic for them. They should be decidedly hungry more than nervous. So you got, Huberdeau, what was he in his 10th year or 9th year, and Barkov's one less, and Ekblad's one less. These are very veteran players and very good players, and you didn't see them rise up to the moment. And that's at the start of Tampa Bay's run, they got a first round series loss, and that's something that sat on them for a while.
Yes.
And the question becomes, okay, will this be the type of motivation the Panthers have for the future, or is this just who they are?
Well, and that's the thing is, when it comes to other sports, I have such a better handle that even if it's wrong, I have no problem questioning the coach or calling for a coach, because I can sort of feel when a coach is doing their job, when the message is lost, all those things. I don't know hockey enough to feel confident in doing that, but when I watch the way the Lightning played, even though supposedly the Panthers were the better team for the second straight year, when I watch the way the Avalanche play, when I watch the way the Rangers are playing, it just looks different. And it's like this, it's not talent anymore. Like, they have the talent even before they brought in Giroux, and then they went and brought Giroux. Like, they had the talent. It just looks a step slower. It just looks different. And it's like, they didn't have to be. So that's why I questioned Brunette a lot. And you said something interesting yesterday, that if they were going to bring him back, they would be bringing him back. So does that mean you think they are in the market for like a Barry Trotz? And look, I know Trotz is more defensive minded. I know he's old school. I know it's a little different, but he's done this. He went to a Capitals organization that was mired with talent, but couldn't win, and then won. And then he did something similar with the Islanders, didn't win a cup, but got them to another level. Could they be in the Barry Trotz sweepstakes, or looking for a guy like that?
Yeah, I mean, my thought was, if they were going to not look around, they would definitely have said Andrew Burnett's coming back the day after the season to make it a no-brainer. Okay, we know where we want to go, and he's the guy to that we want to hitch our wagon to. And the fact they didn't says, okay, we're definitely looking around, and who knows where it goes if they're interested in Trotz. Again, there are other guys that hockey people say fit the Panthers roster better, and that's a little beyond my knowledge of how that all works. And to be honest, I thought Brunette did a great job from how he got the job in October with Joel Quenneville and all that, to he'd never been a head coach before. Now, which plays into it too. If you're Bill Zito, the general manager, and you're making the decision, here's a guy, he wasn't a head coach. He hasn't been a head coach before. And so can you upgrade from where he was at? Some of it, like in the playoffs when they're 1 for 31 in the power play, that just can't be coaching. I mean, that's sometimes your players just have to win. And X's and O's only go so far. Sometimes your good players have to be better than their good players. And the Panthers weren't this offseason or this playoffs. Was it now that, could it come down to the coach talking to the players and working those nerves out of them, or having something to say, or some little tactical thing to help them get started? Maybe, but I put that more on the players, stuff like the power play than coaching.
Dave, we appreciate your time, so I don't want to keep you too much longer, but two more things. One, so it's night and day now, the feeling around the Dolphins, not only talent-wise, but just wow, Tua's so great. Wow, we love Tua. Wow, Mike McDaniel is going and grabbing a burger he's getting popcorn. They're going to the bowling alley. Like McDaniel doing backflips and they're catching him and giving him a hug. Like it's just a whole 180 from the New England Patriot. Brian Flores ran Miami Dolphins, even Adam Gase, even Joe Philbin. It's just different, everything we're hearing. I, as the fan who's grown up down here, am happy with this. You cover the team. You've been around them. How much of it is valid? How much of it is, okay, we're going to sell us on this kid, Tua, because we're going all in on him? What are you getting from all the positivity we're seeing around the Miami Dolphins?
I get, and you mentioned the Jimmy Johnson book that we just did, Swagger, and Jimmy was a big proponent of the Pygmalion theory, which basically is you can talk someone into being great. You can tell them they're great, and they'll become great. And the Dolphins have magically changed the conversation on their franchise this offseason. And part of that's the NFL. Right now, across every play. In Detroit, they're talking about how good they're going to be. And people are saying, this could be the year for Detroit. Okay. And so across the NFL right now, in May, June, going into the first day, everybody thinks that they have a good team. That's the magic of that league. And it's underlined with the Dolphins when you changed leaders from a guy who was very closed, doored. He didn't open up, interviews. Just look what's going on. Players are interviewing all the time this offseason.
Yes.
And that didn't happen. The coach, again, everybody talking about it, the shoes he wears and the musicians he quotes and things that just didn't happen before. So a lot of it's kind of has nothing to do with getting the Dolphins win. That said, they've had a good offseason from the standpoint of they're going to be better next year with Tyreek Hill, Sharon Armstead. Those are two big pieces for them. Now, does the optimism match what's going to happen? I guess it has to play out. Vegas isn't believing it. They're having. Last I saw, they were ranked number 10th in the AFC.
Yeah.
So I mean, again, that doesn't mean a whole lot other than still when people stack up who they are against the league going into the season, they're not impressed. But boy, you hear the optimism around the Dolphins and how great everybody's going to be, and I just think Pygmalion. They're trying to set the bar high and tell everybody they're great with the idea. And it starts with Tua. They're Brian Flores, it was tough love with Tua, and now the coach, before he'd even seen him play, is on the airplane telling him how great he is. So, we'll take it for what it is. It's they're trying to talk themselves into having a great team, and maybe it works. This is probably the best team on paper the Dolphins have had, and I don't know how do you want to figure? They haven't had two receivers like this since Duper and Clayton.
Yeah.
So that's something right there.
So, and you mentioned it, Swagger coming out sometime in with November, we think. Really excited about that book. Your main character, your antagonist, your protagonist, the one and only Jimmy Johnson, the guy that we got to sit down with. And it's funny, the way you talk about leadership is very similar to what he said, in the sense that he talked about you have to treat everyone differently. And you sort of got the vibe from Flores. He didn't. He treated everyone the same. Jimmy Johnson admitted, look, everyone, I had to treat Charles Haley different than I had to treat Emmett, different than I had to treat Nate Newton, different than I had to treat Troy. And that sort of, look, they weren't all great. Troy was the number one pick, but all of them weren't. Nate went to FAM. Like Mark Stepnovsky wasn't this well-known dude. Novacek, they weren't all great until they got there. So a lot of that makes a lot of sense. And we expect Swagger to be great. And we're really excited about the book. And I can't wait to talk more about it, Dave. Again, it's still slated, you think, sometime in November?
Yeah, it'll be out right now. We're meeting with the publisher and editor down here at the Keys near Jimmy next week. So we'll hash everything out then.
Well, congrats on the book. We're excited about it. We will talk more Dolphins. We'll talk a lot of Canes because there's you talk about excitement, and it feels valid. They've done everything people thought they couldn't do. So we will definitely talk a lot of Canes as we get into the summer months. But Dave, thank you so much for joining me. Check him out at Dave Hyde Sports on Twitter. And of course, South Florida Sun Sentinel. Get a subscription either online or in the hand. They still exist. Dave, thank you so much for joining me this morning. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Lubie. Enjoy your solo act this week, and we'll. It's a good thing you sent Defo in exile so you can have your own show.
I had to get some time alone. You're the man, Dave. Thank you so much. One and only Dave
All right, take
Hyde.
care.
Have a good one. Thanks. That is Dave Hyde. We'll go from one legend to an icon, a man that when we talk about Mount Rushmore of sports, you know, you have Schnelly, you have Shula, you have Riley, you have Wade and Marino, whichever you want to do. Well, when it comes to South Florida broadcasting icons, I'm sure there's 5. I'm sure you can get to 10. There's only one for us. The one and only Tony Segreto joins me, kicking it old school. Next, of course, Ed Garcia. He's been the traveling man. He will join us as well at about 8:15, representing Texas Roadhouse. We appreciate their support, and Catholic Health Services. We'll talk more about them, and we'll talk about the South Florida sports scene now, future, and the past. Kicking it old school with one and only Tony Segreto is next right here on the Defo Show. With no Defo, just Lubie here, Ion Channel. More coming up next. Stay tuned.
Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. You're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. Good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched, steaks hand cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Any time of year, things can happen to your home or business, and the insurance company can be your friend, but they also can be your enemy. Horizon Public Adjusters, Justina Testa, are here for you to help this process go so much easier. 7 to 10 times more money recovered with a public adjuster than if you went on your own. If there's no recovery, there's no fee. Before you call your insurance company, call Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa at 954-809-8752.
What we gonna do right here is go back, way back into time.
We are now kicking it old school with the one and only Tony Segreto. Brought to you by Catholic Health Services and Texas Roadhouse.
Tell me, doctor, where are we going this time?
Welcome back, one and all, whether it's morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you're catching us, be it live or on our podcast or on 5 Reasons or on the stuff we do on Believe. We appreciate it, and I appreciate this gentleman with his big smile joining us each and every week, be it a Tuesday, a Wednesday, or a Thursday for Kicking It Old School with Tony Segreto, brought to you by Texas Roadhouse and Catholic Health Services. Good morning, Mr. Tony Segreto. How you doing, my friend?
Good morning. I am doing fantastic, and I'm excited. You're doing the show, and we're actually starting on time. We're not like 10 minutes late. And in the words of Dave Hyde, it's about time you exile Defo so you could have your own show. So let's you and I get this thing going here.
I didn't exile him. He's in your home. First of all, okay, I know from
country.
Jersey.
Yeah, I know. He's in Italy.
Oh, you're Italian. Yeah. Okay, I presume you've been there. I'm honored and lucky to have been there. Between Italy and Greece, Israel, those 3 countries, I try to figure out what I loved more. They all great people, great food, and great sights. It's funny, Defo, we all know him to be what he is. And I said, look, gambling's not a big deal and sports aren't a huge deal. They love soccer, but they don't just walk around talking about it. Yeah. And I've never seen anything gambling over there, like nothing. Yeah. So enjoy. So far, I've got no lament texts, so I think he's having a good time. Have you been to Italy? Where have you been in Italy? Because I loved it.
Yeah. Well, my grandparents, my grandparents, Roseanne's grandparents were born in Italy. Roseanne's grandparents were born in Palermo.
Oh, wow.
Mine were born in Naples. I've been to Naples. I have been, throughout the region, to Capri and the Amalfi Coast, and looking forward to going back. And Roseanne has never been to Sicily, so we're looking forward to doing that. So yeah, it's a beautiful place. And what's going to be funny is that Defo is going to come back and he's not going to admit that he had a good time with Mustang. He's never going to admit that he actually enjoyed being with her, because God forbid we pull back the curtain and see this different side of him, because he's got to continue the profile, right? So,
well, that's what I said to him was, because all of his trips are these like gambling junkets, and I said that's fine, and they do their own thing, and I'm like, there's nothing wrong with that. That's not this trip. Like, you're going to Italy to be with your spouse. Like, that's what the trip is. Like, you're together. Wine and cheese and great pasta and the Colosseum and Tuscany. Like, that's what you're doing in Italy. Like, so I haven't had any texts yet. So maybe you're right. Maybe it's just a big ruse. I don't know.
We'll find out. We'll find out. But I how many times do I tell you off mic, off camera, just in a private conversation, that it's and sometimes in our sports world it's cool to be, oh yeah, I've got an anchor, blah 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 blah. But the reality is you have a partner. You started out as great friends. You started, you moved forward. You got married. So to maintain that stability and that anchor is vital. It just is. It's important for your happiness and for your well-being.
Well, no, my Shirley will push my well-being. It also raise it. It's a fun game, and you being married for as long as you have, I'm sure, and your wife is as strong and bright a woman that exists, which is what we need. But it's not always easy, is what I've learned.
Yeah. nor is it easy for them.
No.
Listen, I listened to. I was listening to the last bit of Dave Hyde, and I thought he brought out a couple points that I wanted to bring up. When it came to the Panthers, when we're 1 of 31 in the power play, and I think Dave said something to the effect where that's more than coaching. It's where the players have got to step up. And I have constantly said that. You can only coach so much. Now, you're responsible for the character and the player you have, right? So you want to make sure you have the most talented player and a player who's going to be able to perform. But at the same time, once you release them onto the ice, onto the field, onto the court, wherever the case might be, it's up to them to start making plays. You need people to make plays for you, and I think that we have to look at it that way. And we can blame coaching all we want, but at some point, someone's got to step up, flip the switch to change the momentum by scoring that goal, doing something to ignite the team. And so I think he brought out a good point. And, we were talking about, I'm looking forward to the book Swagger, having spent just an enormous amount of time with Jimmy and doing a show and everything. One of the things he talked about, and you talked about how you treat players. His mantra was, you treat all the players the same, but differently. That was his mantra. And this is what he meant. The same is that there are team rules. There are team rules in which you live by. Okay. Within those rules, then there's flexibility. So you're going to treat Troy Aikman and Dan Marino and, Emmett and whoever differently, but they still have the same rules and team rules that they live by. Practices this time. We have meetings, on and on and on and on and on. And the other thing Jimmy talked about, that a lot of teams are now starting to profess more and more, because Jimmy was I'm not sure, he was a psychology major in high school, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he made sure to tell us that, and we thought that was interesting.
He was all about the mind, all about the mind, and one of his big things was making sure that every team he had position competition, so that you never got comfortable in your position. You always had to work hard, because you looked over your shoulder, because as soon as you mess up, if this is a consistent, part of you, that you're, jumping off sides, you're making bad calls, you're not making the catch, on and on, missing the tackle, there's someone right behind you who's been pushing you, who's got a chance to make a big play. So I think that as we go forward here, and you talked about is the excitement with the Dolphins, is it legit? I don't know. I don't know. Just go out there and play. Just go out there and play. We're gonna find out. We're not gonna find out during preseason. We're gonna find out during preseason how hard we can play, how excited we are as a team. Can certain guys make plays in big situations? Okay. The record's not going to indicate that. I keep stressing that. The preseason record's not going to indicate it. Do you want to win that last game when everybody's playing, or the game before the last game when everybody's playing 3 quarters? Of course you do, because then it gives you that momentum. And we're always hearing about momentum. But I think the bottom line is when it's, regular season starts, it's a whole different ballgame, just like when the playoffs start. The speed's different. The stakes are different. So we'll see. I don't know. I know that you're right. Yeah. There's McDaniel. He just got a hamburger at Steak Shack, and I don't know.
Yeah, it's just funny to me.
Yeah, it is. It's very funny. It's
just different. And it's funny, everything you're saying. And look, when I was growing up, and you talk about this organization and the leadership, namely one person, a lot, right? Well, when I was growing up, it's why there were 2 people. God rest his soul. I didn't get to meet one in person, but I got to talk to him a couple times. And the other, when I met them, I was like, oh my God. It was like the moment because Don Shula and the Miami Dolphins were the preemptive, prominent organization of my life. Like, it was the Knowles and it was the Dolphins. It was Bobby. It was Don Shula. So, but it's funny when you're talking now, all I'm thinking about is the Heat. All you're saying, make that play. The Heat, everyone was dead, yet you saw Lowry hit a big 3. You saw Strus hit a big 3. You saw Bam wake up in 2 games when you hadn't been aggressive offensively. You saw Jimmy Butler on one leg. They lost, but it wasn't because they weren't making that play. It was the opposite. They made that play time again.
But Butler came down to put the nail in the coffin, with time running out. He didn't make the shot. He tried it. He had an open look. His legs were done. And because when you hit off the front of the iron like that, and you can't get it there, it's usually your legs are done. And listen, they gave it a great run. Was Boston better? Probably. They're probably a better team. And we they're a lot healthier. And we got by with what we had. I thought Spoelstra did a great job, and it was a great series. It caused great excitement in the town, as was the Panthers. The Panthers were disappointing. Just because they were swept so decisively, and then that one game where they lost with 2 seconds left?
Yeah, 3 seconds, literally 3 seconds in a hockey game.
2.3, yeah. How does that happen? It
doesn't happen. But that's the thing. That's the difference, and it's why the Dolphins were always that thing is Don Shula. And it's funny, all the players, you hear the same thing with Jimmy Johnson. You hear the same thing with a lot of the greats. When they're playing for him, they can't stand him. But after the fact, they love him because it made them who they were.
Absolutely, they love him. And I think one of the things that's foreign to us is that when we did have, Don, and we did have Jimmy at and, we moved forward. But when we did have Don, especially, the excitement was always there because it was expected. We knew we were going to be good. We knew that the Dolphins would be good. When it was Schnelly and Jimmy and Erickson at Miami, you knew we would be good. You knew it. So the excitement was tempered. The excitement was expected. We walked with that swagger like, hey, we're good. We're good. The only thing we can do is screw it up. That's the only thing we can do is screw this up. And when you had 13 throwing, and when you had the Kellys and the Testaverdes and the Walshes and the Craig Ericksons throwing the ball, and Gino Torretta, when you had them throwing the ball, and you had the Jerome Browns of the world, my gosh, this was, it was, God rest his soul. It was incredible. I talked to Jonathan Vilma the other day, and, he's really made a name for himself. And his experiences at Miami, propelled him to have a really good, nice NFL career. It was what the coaches talked to him about, how he practiced, how he got his education. It's just those moments in life that at the time as you pointed out, you don't like them very much, but boy, oh boy, when you're done, you're going, wow, that was amazing.
Well, and that was the thing. And Jimmy, what I meant to say, it wasn't that he treated them like this is a star. No. What I meant is every person and that's what makes the best coaches is you can't yell and scream at every guy. You can't treat every guy nice. Like some guys, and that's what I was trying to liken it to. Eric Spoelstra's sort of seemed to be the guy that figured that out, right? Like he's been with the stars. He's doing. No one pushed LeBron. LeBron hated it here. He left, and all we've heard since LeBron left is, "Wow, that guy's a great coach. Wow, Riley did great things." Because they realized, that guy. It was valuable to me that he was able to push me, whereas some guys Spoelstra pulls back. McDaniel, that's my thing with McDaniel is I feel like at least early on he's getting that part right. Flores,
we'll see.
Exactly. Well, the work I don't know. That's why I'm hopeful is it's different. It's new. It's okay. I'm not going to make Tua scared every second. I'm going to embolden him. I'm going to empower him. I might not treat everyone this way, but I'm going to treat Tua this way because he hasn't been treated this way. Maybe it'll work.
Well, I think that coaches need to understand again, I'm going to go back to that saying, treat everybody the same, but differently, because there are guys that need a kick in the butt.
Yep.
And then there are guys who need an arm around a shoulder. Yep. You know, there are guys who need to be encouraged on what they're doing positively. And there are guys that need to be encouraged by telling them what not to do. Right. Yep. It's just, you need to know your team. You need to know what makes them tick. You need to know what it is that's going to inspire them to make that play. I was with Mario Cristobal about a week ago. We were at an event together, and we talk about. I was telling him about Gary Stevens, how Gary Stevens, great offensive coordinator for the Hurricanes in their heyday. Then Jimmy took Gary with him to Dallas, and he was the offensive, receivers coach there, and offensive coordinator. And when Gary was at UM, I was walking through the facility one day, and he called me into his office, shut the door, and he's watching film. And Gary wasn't a guy that pulled the curtain back very much. He didn't let his hair down. He was always kind of cranky, always had that sort of edge. He always had a cigarette going. And, how's your day going? That kind of guy. But we got along. I respected him. He had a deep respect for me. He calls me in his office, and he goes, I don't know if people realize, he goes, how much I love my job. And this was just unlike Gary. He goes, but I wonder if people realize also that my job that I love and I'm getting paid well for is totally dependent on an 18-year-old young man going over the middle in front of 80,000 people and making a catch. Right? That's his livelihood is based on that. This kid can do it over and over again in practice. But the lights are on, cameras are flashing, TV cameras are there, people are screaming, 3rd and 5, it's your call. Can he make the play?
Yeah.
No lamenting. I'm not complaining. I'm just telling you that's what he says to me. That's my life. That's my life. Yeah. He goes, it's nerve-wracking. It drives you absolutely crazy.
Well, what's interesting is one guy that you would think could cave under the pressure of enormous success and enormous responsibility. And really, I don't know if he carries a torch because they're really well run wherever they are. But I mean, you sort of feel like this guy is how they ebb and flow. Ed Garcia from Texas Roadhouse, whenever those lights are on, whether it's in his maize and blue or it's in South Florida or it's at one of his roadhouses all throughout the country, he shines bright. The one and only Ed Garcia is back with us here on the show. Good morning, Ed. How you doing?
Good morning. Thanks for that awesome intro. I love being here.
I love the maize and blue.
I love that he's ready today.
I was gonna wear my hurricane hoodie this morning, but I thought, well, maybe I should wait because you're gonna be on. I didn't want to insult you or anything like that.
You're good. Season tickets go on sale today, so I am in queue to upgrade my seat. So
excellent. So listen, Ed, we have a lot going on. Summer is officially here. We just got through Memorial Day, And this is the time of year where you want to grill. And this is the kind of year when you want to be outside. So with both of those aspects, when it comes to Texas Roadhouse, can people still get those steaks that we did during the pandemic, the butcher shop, if they want to go home and grill them? And is there good seating outside? If I just want to come to the restaurant and sit outside on a beautiful South Florida night and have a good burger or whatever it is that I want with a cold beer and a margarita and those rolls.
Absolutely. I'll tell you, first off, we have check out Texas Roadhouse Butcher Shop, and you can order a variety of our type of steaks, and they come to your house. They're hand cut, absolutely some of the best quality. You can even get some seasoning to go with it as well, so you can have some fun and grill at home and have that same Texas Roadhouse quality. We're not really doing them in the restaurants anymore. We're doing it right from our butcher shop, and it just gets delivered safe and sound to your front door, which is fantastic. Not all our roadhouses have outside seating. Some of us have some picnic tables and some patio tables and all that great stuff, but definitely come in and enjoy, especially now that summertime and Memorial Day kicked off. I mean, it is rib season. You should see our ribs. They're absolutely fantastic. They are really, really, really big right now. We have that winter crop that's coming in, and I'll tell you, those pigs got really fat. So you're seeing some really, really, really big ribs, which is great. And, I know you've seen it. It's a 3-day cooking process, where we season them and get that really good dry rub. And then when we put them on the grill, we kind of do a little bit of a sweeter barbecue sauce on there to finish it off. So it caramelizes really, really well and creates this awesome blend where they fall right off the bone.
Well, I have to tell you, when you go to Texas Roadhouse, it's an experience. It's not just the food. It's the way you're treated. It's the line dancing. It's the music. It's the energy. The energy and the music and the atmosphere is just at the right level where you can continue to have a conversation at your table, but you can also enjoy the energy if you're by yourself, if you're by your partner, whatever the case might be, if you're with your children. And Ed, as on a personal note, I got that butcher shop, and it is fantastic, folks. I am telling you, it is amazing. It comes in dry ice, right? Is that what it is?
That's right.
It comes to you in dry ice, and the steaks are absolutely incredible. I just don't think there's a better way to go. But when it comes to the ribs, there's nothing like Texas Roadhouse. Tell us about this 3-day process real quick again for people who have never heard of it.
I mean, we take that rib and we put coast to coast. It's like, a sandy beach. I mean, there is not a part of that rib meat that's not exposed with our seasonings. And it's a good variety of seasonings. It's got a little bit of heat to it, some white pepper, some salt, and a lot of different fun and exciting stuff. And we just let that absorb into the meat for about 24 hours. And then that's when we cook them overnight. Takes about anywhere up to 12 hours of the cooking process. And then we throw them on the grill and baste them with that barbecue sauce. And then it hits your table. Can't go wrong with that.
Man, I'm hungry already. Listen, man, thank you so much. Hey, what do we have? About 94 days until opening of the season for the Amazing? Is it something like that?
That is right. Yes, it is. It's coming right around the corner. So very, very exciting. It's going to be a really interesting football season. I mean, both pro and college. I'm very excited for it. Can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be. I think the 3 schools here in the state of Florida are going to be fantastic. I think they're going to be really, really good. And then you add the maize and blue. What you're upgrading your seats from 50-yard line to where? In the huddle? Is that what you're doing?
I'm hoping to be standing next to Harbaugh, but we'll
see. You need your Lululemon khakis, and you'll be set to go.
Yeah, exactly.
There we go.
All right, Ed, we love you. Thanks, man. We appreciate it.
Have a great day, guys.
Love you, man. Thanks for everything.
It's funny. Good for you. That's one thing I haven't done is the butcher shop. We've eaten there. It's become like where we go if we go out for a family occasion. The wife and I are big stay-at-home people, so I'll go pick it up because we're lucky to have one a few minutes away, and the app is freaking ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, it's so easy to use. It's amazing. The butcher shop is an interesting move. I never even thought about that.
So I gotta tell you a quick story. Okay.
Yeah.
So Ed, we get the butcher shop sent to us. We get it the week before Christmas.
Oh, that's perfect.
In Vermont. Okay.
Yeah.
So we get this big cooler, and this is for everybody who orders it. You get a big cooler. We had 4 I mean, huge steaks,
Nice.
all
Nice.
frozen in the dry ice, right?
Nice.
It's December 18th, 19th. We
Okay.
have about 8 inches, 10 inches of snow on the
Oh,
ground.
jeez. Okay.
All right. It's my son has just arrived, who's a big steak eater. My daughter's here. We got friends here. So we look at the steaks, and my son looks at me and he goes, "We have to barbecue these." I go, "Well, you know,
How
it's
do you
like 10
barbecue?
degrees outside." Okay, so I wheel the barbecue out in the front of our
Oh
house.
my God, Tony.
I shovel off an area for where my son wants to cook them. We get the fire going. I swear to you, the temperature's dropping. It's like 10 degrees, and he's queuing these steaks. All right, so first of all, the steaks were through the roof.
Sure.
You know, we got flashlights out so we could see because it's just so cold. So we're enjoying the steaks. It's now we get done, and I just top off the barbecue and I cover it back up, and it's so cold. It's already cold already. I wheel it back down to the garage, and I leave it. So now my daughter was here this past weekend in Vermont, and she said, "Let's grill." So I bring the grill out, and I'm looking at him going, "Why the heck is it so dirty? Why is the grill?" And I remember, oh, this is from Christmas time.
Oh my God.
So,
well, the Texas Roadhouse will do that to you. They'll make you motivated to do things you never thought you would do. So
you got that right, man. You got that right. It was a great. If I have a picture, I'll send.
I love that picture. Yeah, that's amazing to see you in the like it's Lambo coming
Yeah.
down and you're freaking
Exactly.
grilling.
Yeah.
Only Tony Segreto. This is Kicking It Old School. Thank you to Ed Garcia. We will soon and Texas Roadhouse talk about Catholic Health Services. We'll talk so much more about South Florida sports. I do want to dive more into you threw out there you met with Mario Cristobal. Well, a lot going around with Mario Cristobal and the Miami Hurricanes. More with the Dolphins, a little bit with the Heat, and we will talk maybe some other sports. Yes, one of South Florida's own, Coco Gauff, is sitting there in the semifinals at Roland Garros at the French Open, and you had two icons, talking about icons, take the court yesterday in what was a match to go down in history. I mean, these guys are nearing the end, it seems, of their career, and they're still going 4 hours, Nadal and Djokovic. So we'll talk about all that with Mr. Kicking It Old School himself. Again, thank you to Texas Roadhouse and Catholic Health Services. Tony Segreto will be right back after
It's the Lubie Show. It's the
yeah.
Lubie Show.
The Defo Show without Defo with Lubie is what I'm calling it. More.
The Lubie Show.
More next.
Poker is your game. You're covered in style. And you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in the Plantation location, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
Catholic Health Services is committed to care that changes as your needs do. Our full continuum of services is designed to be there throughout your care journey. If you need assistance with daily living, post-acute care following a serious health event, or additional medical care at home, we also offer skilled nursing and palliative and hospice care. Your care needs may change, but our commitment never does. Catholic Health Services, South Florida's #1 choice for post-acute and end-of-life care. Visit CatholicHealthServices.org.
One thing I noticed, a big disparity. I mean, the Florida State players look waif-like. This is kind of like watching the Oklahoma Sooners football team come in for their tune-up game, their cupcake game on the schedule against Ohio Wesleyan. And you look at the offensive line of Oklahoma, and you wonder how anybody's going to get around them. There is a distinct size differential in the girls on the Oklahoma team versus those on Florida State.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to use football as the analogy. I'm going to say that they all look like Dave Kingman. You know, they're all like 6 feet tall. It's remarkable. There's a couple of girls who are probably 5'5", 5'4", 5'6", but I would say a good.
But they're like 240, yeah.
6 feet tall, and man, and when you look at their numbers, they're gaudy. I mean, 406, 425, 32 home runs, 27 home runs. Even the ninth hitter in the lineup has got like 18 home runs this year.
We are now kicking it old school with the one and only Tony Segreto. Brought to you by Catholic Health Services and Texas Roadhouse.
All right, welcome back to the Defo Show without Defo, with Lubie here. Kicking it old school with Tony Segreto. Again, thanks, Ed. Thanks, Dave Hyde. Coming up, we will, of course, talk a little bit about Catholic Health Services. I wanted to get into something with you, and you brought up crystal ball, but Aaron Donald has talked about how he thought he'd be retiring at this age. He played 8 years. He's probably a Hall of Famer already. Now just won a Super Bowl, so that's given him a taste to want to keep playing. But, you know, the money's got to be right, which I actually agree. He's like 102nd highest paid player, and he's by far, for most of his career, been the best defensive player in football and probably a top 5 player overall in football. You are a guy that I know, as many years as you put into it, retired before you needed to. You are a big family man. You still work, but you have a lot of time to your family. It's funny. We've seen in the sports world, I guess with salaries being what they are, a lot of guys, and the sport being what it is, retiring young. This guy who personally has sort of, you know, you still do media stuff, but on your own time, not on someone else's. And from everything, you still wear that hat. So they didn't push you out. It was a Tony Segreto decision. I thought it could ring true to you as a guy who, even, and Aaron said, even if he gets the money, he still only wants to play another 2-3 years. Like he's going to retire young no matter what. Yeah. I find that interesting. Like these guys, after an era of the 80s and 90s where these guys played until their body gave out, these guys are like Patrick Willis, Aaron Donald. We've seen a lot of these players go, I'm okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to pull the curtain back. I'm going to say something to you and tell people something I've never said publicly, ever.
Okay.
My family knows. Okay. So when I was born, it was the year that Joe DiMaggio retired. And he retired when he was offered the biggest contract ever offered in baseball. And they asked him at a young age, why did he retire? And he says, because I want people to remember me as a great player. I didn't want to be pushed out. I just wanted to go out while people still thought of me as a great player. Yeah. And he would always say like how hard he would play every day, because people would, if you recall one of his lines, I'm not going to get the line right, but basically he goes, every day I'm going to play hard because people are going to see me play for the very first time live. And I don't want to be slouching off. Okay.
Yeah. The Jordan thing.
So, yeah. So when I got to the point where, you know, I was 59 years old and I was up for a new contract, and they had offered me a new contract, and Roseanne and I sat down and I told her how I felt. It always stuck with me that what we do on TV, without the physical part of it. So please do not misunderstand me when you hear this. Yeah. It's tantamount to what an athlete goes through, in that if you get too old, you start, you know, we can't start looking too old. We can't get so old that we're fumbling through our scripts. We can't react to an ad lib. We can't react to breaking news. An athlete, you know, is your 40 now a 5.0 instead of a 4.3? Yeah. Are you missing tackles? Are you missing passes? Are you slow off the line? Are you not recognizing coverages? Are you not recognizing offenses? So it's that kind of thing. And I had a few people I worked with who hung on way too long, and people were laughing at them, and they literally had to be pushed out the door. And then what? Okay. And the other part for me was I never thought of what I did as my identity. Right. I wasn't, it wasn't Tony Segreto was this character. I'm not a character, but he was a separate person. I always had two people. It was Anthony Segreto at home with my family, and then Tony Segreto was on TV.
Wait, the heights you got to, where literally you were the sports guy, then you became like the prominent sports guy, to then do some news, then became the news anchor. You still were Tony on air, Anthony Segreto, because I feel like to get to those heights, a lot of the time you'll see the greats sort of merge, and it becomes their world. No, it didn't. It never. So, and when I made the call to retire, I never had a second thought about it. I never. Really? I'll tell you what I did. When the day I retired, the day I was on the air, the last day on the air,
at about 5 o'clock. I called Cindy over. She's the bartender over at Runway 84. And I had reservations to go to Runway as soon as the show was over. And I told her, I said, I'm leaving here at 6:40 and I should be at Runway about 7:10. Please have a martini or two ready for me. Okay. And I remember like it was yesterday, walking out of the office, my daughter was holding my hand, and my son was walking next to me, and my wife, and we had a great run, and we said goodbye, and that was it. And I had no regrets and never thought a second about it again. And
you didn't
I
miss
was
it, because that's what athletes talk about it all the time.
I missed
entertainers too.
I missed the people.
Okay.
I missed the people I worked with. I miss the craft. I love the craft. The trappings that came with it just came with it, right? And I never bought into that. I mean, yeah, it was nice. You get people recognize you, yes, and you get good seats at restaurants and all those things. But it didn't matter. If you sit me next to the kitchen, that's fine. I don't care. I was brought up in a very humble Italian home. I was thrown into this at a very young age. I was surrounded by great mentors who always kept me grounded. My parents always kept me grounded. My faith kept me grounded, and it was. I loved what I did. I never worked a day in my life. I loved my craft. I still love my craft. That's why I still do it with you, and that's why I do the Zoom events I do. That's why I have a podcast. I still love it. I don't want the everyday grind anymore. I don't want that corporate kind of lifestyle deal where you're dependent on all that. I want more control. I wanted more time with my family. I wanted more time to travel. I wanted more time at my home in Vermont, and God has blessed us. And I say the prayers every day that we were able to make that happen.
Well, and I just find it interesting that we're seeing athletes do this, because athletes were the uber
that doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me, because if you see some of the older guys that hung on so much, their hips are bad, their knees are bad, their shoulders are bad. They have the concussions. I was with Bernie. I was with Bernie Kosar the other day. I mean, I can't even remember. What did he say? He had 36 concussions or 50. I don't know what it was. Something ridiculous. Broken bones and everything. And God bless him. He's doing amazing. He's never looked better. We've had great conversations. We're best of friends. And I mean, he's doing fabulous. And I think that players today are looking at these older guys and going, I don't know if I want that, A. And B, I've made enough money. I'm making good investments. I'm still lucid. I can get other work. I can do other things. There's a lot more avenues to do other things and represent companies. And I have my education. I have my diploma. I just think that there's a better way, and they want to be whole. They want their body to be free, as free as it can be, of waking up every day going, God, I need 5 Advil, to get going. And I think that I admire that. Yeah. And I want to go back to another thing. You and Dave Hyde were talking about the excitement around the Dolphins and everything. And Dave was saying how they're excited in Detroit. They're excited. And I think one of the reasons we're at that point is we are. I think the Matt Stafford commercial with I think it's Verizon or AT&T.
Oh, it's AT&T. Yeah, it's AT&T.
It's masterful. It's masterful. You mean you can stay with one company for all those years and move to another company and still love that old company and get a better situation with this new company? She says, yeah, right. So it's like, okay, well, if we can do this, if the Chargers can do this with one player, why can't we do it with one player, right? Why can't we make that happen? Why can't we make that, why can't we be like the Rams? Why can't we be like the Chargers? Why can't we be like the 49ers? Whatever the case might be. I think that gives people that expectation, that excitement, and we'll see. But for me, that's what I felt. I wanted to retire just on a personal level before people said to me, hey, it may be time to leave. I would rather people say to me like you did, man, you retired early. You still got game. And I know I still have game. I could still go back on. There's no doubt in my mind.
So
But
you made that decision like before you even started.
yeah.
You just knew this from an early age, and even when your career started, you never like. To me, I've always been trying to chase a carrot. I still haven't gotten to where I want to go. That I can't even think about the end. Like, look, Defo still does this because, why you still do? We've made it where he's not killing himself. It's not work. It's fun.
Right.
So if it's fun, why not do it?
Right.
And you're not saying TV wasn't fun, but it's definitely more demanding.
It was fun. It was just, but it was, it was fun, but it was a grind.
Yeah.
And you can only do so much. Listen, what helped me maintain 40 years was the fact that I could do all the network things I did, that I could do the George Michael Sports Machine, that I could travel to the Olympics, that I could travel to all the big events for both local and network. And, and be able to do that for, whether it was the Today Show or whatever the case might be. That was important to me, and that made it really doable. And then I said, okay, it's okay. So it's interesting though. I still look at TV differently, and I miss like I said, the craft itself, but the grind now.
Well, and that's
and
and that's the thing. That's why when I see these players, like back in the day, you would go like when Barry Sanders retired, it was a shock, and I was sort of frustrated because I really liked
that was new. But boy, was that smart. He never looked back.
No, he didn't.
Ever.
Calvin Johnson did the same thing. It's funny, we're in this era where I don't lament the guys. It's not what I'm negative. I'm like, good for them. And with you, it's interesting that like it seems like no one, made you feel guilty, made you feel bad, and you embraced it. Your family embraced it. You've had much like Kobe Bryant, a successful second act. I find it curious you win a Super Bowl. You're 31. You are still the best defensive player in football. You're not even showing signs. Like the dude had like 9 quarterback pressures in the playoffs. Like he was all over Joe Burrow in the Super Bowl. He had the sack. He had a sack off. Like he literally had the sack to end the game. Yeah. And now he's talking Super Bowl. It's like, okay.
Well, it's funny. Listen, I had reached we were number one in sports. We were number one in news. Listen, within a period of time after I retired, they try to get me back. They talked to me about coming back. and there was, my wife and I talked about it, and there was not one upside to it. Not one. Now, certainly you were going to get paid. It was going to be a little bit more, the money. And I'm not being flip about that.
No.
But there wasn't one upside to it. If I came back and the ratings didn't go up, I failed. If I came back and the ratings did go up, I did what I was supposed to do. I did what I was supposed to. Yeah. So it was like there was no. I didn't want to be. I didn't want to be that boxer that came back in the ring thinking he could do it when he couldn't. And unless the supporting cast was good enough for me, there was just no way.
Yeah, I'm always in awe because we've seen Favre and Montana, and Marino did what you did. Marino was like, pretty much Jimmy Johnson was like, look, we're moving on. And he could not see himself, not us. He couldn't see himself in another uniform. So he did whatever he had to do.
The Vikings
they want him desperately
over him. Yeah. I mean, he thought long and hard about the Vikings. But at the end, he just no, enough.
I'm impressed when people have, because so often entertainment, whether sports, music, whatever, what we do, I guess that's entertainment in some form. And news, you're out there and you get so lost in the day to day. I'm always, and it's what I try to do. I've learned it from you, Defo, the Greek, the people that I consider, even my buddy Mac, who's not older, but who shine, but also have really good family life and really enjoy their life. I, as a person who's had to grind to the point where all I do is focus on what hopefully can be, I want to still hold on to that too.
Make no mistake. In order for us to be in this place that you say we are, we had to grind. Listen, I was grinding. I was doing 7 days a week, 6 months out of the year for years. I can't tell you. I worked every Christmas, every Thanksgiving, every Easter, every holiday. I was in Washington for the Sports Machine for every Easter.
Wow.
I mean, listen. There was an absolute grind, but you have to understand that in order to get to that point, you to the point we are today, you've got to grind it out, to where now you can sit there and go. And here's the other thing. I cannot tell you, and I don't want to mention their names, how many people since I left retired, but they called me to ask me about it because their identity was what they did.
Yeah.
And that's where I was completely different than everybody else. I had no issues with the identity. None whatsoever. And there comes a point where after a certain amount of time, your legacy is set.
Yeah. All I can do is damage to it. All I can do is
the only thing you can do is damage it, right?
Yeah.
And there's no way you're going to, if I had stayed 5 more years, would my legacy have been any better, any different? Probably not. Whatever that legacy is, you guys term it the way you want to, but it's not going to be different. And I think for an athlete, it's the same way.
Yes, yes.
Listen, you get to a point where here's your legacy. You're a Hall of Famer. You're an All-American. You're an All-Pro, whatever the case might be. And that's it. That's that. Listen, on a much different scale, when my daughter played softball, she was really good. And I always said to her, when it stops being fun for you, we stop.
Good for you.
This isn't who you are. This is what you do, and you enjoy it. And when you want to stop, we stop. It's not, it's not your identity. You're not Sam Segreto, the softball player. You're Sam Segreto. You're a beautiful young woman. So after her high school career, she goes, I'm done. I said, fine. That's
and
it.
she had scholarships on the table. She could have kept
Yeah,
playing.
she had
She's like,
scholarships. Yeah, and then she's done. And then when she got to Florida State, she became a manager for one of the greatest teams in college softball, with probably the best coach in college softball.
A&M's after her heart.
and her experience there was better than anything she could have ever done as a player, because of what she was able to do and how she was able to do it. So it's how you perceive things. It's that, it's not my identity. It's what I do. Tony Segreto is what I did. And it's still, yes, people recognize me and I'm willing to talk about it. We're talking about it today. I look, if they ask me, I will tell them. If they don't, that's okay too.
That's the thing is, and I wasn't saying, of course, you're a grinder. Like when I have friends that'll be like, "Why don't you have a show?" He does. I'm like, you don't even know what he does and what he did to get there. So what I'm saying is, I'm so caught in that I'm amazed when someone is where I want to be, and they can talk so, macro. They can talk so big picture while being in the moment. Because so often, like athletes will say, "Well, I'll worry about my legacy later." And what it feels like to me is, you knew going in, whatever happened, you had a goal and you weren't going to let whatever life did make you push farther. You knew what you wanted. You knew what was important to you, and you weren't going to let fame, money, power, whatever it was, change that. And I think that's really cool. I think so often, like once you get, you're like, oh, you're a good person. You're a whatever person. And then you get the money, you get the fame, and then you change. And and I don't begrudge people doing that. Stuff happens.
Listen, we all get caught up in that. I had the nice car, I had the nice watch. We did all the.
But you didn't let it take you over, and I think that's cool. I think it's cool that you found a way, and I'm sure your family was like, we don't care about all that. Your dad.
We don't. We don't. We really don't. And you know what else? What was important? The true. My wife was the biggest champion in my life and continues to be. And she handled all of the pressures, all of the travel, all of the good stuff, all of the not good stuff, all of the criticism, all of the praise, all of the intrusions, all of the, drop everything. And I got to go to a different country to cover a story. She lived through all of that with nothing but support. And when you have that and you have a young family, I remember coming back from the Atlanta Olympics. I was there for, I don't know, 7 weeks, 6 weeks, something like that. My son had just turned, my son had just turned 2. And I remember coming home and sitting on our porch, and my son was just hugging me. And I looked at Roseanne. I said, "That's it." She said, "What are you talking about?" I said, this travel like this is that we're done. And I remember going into the office and I said, "Listen, I'll be more than happy to cover NFL games or a college football game, but being gone for 6-7 weeks at a time or whatever the case might be, it's not going to work. I can't. I just can't. I cannot miss my children growing up for that long. I just wouldn't do it." So I still traveled, but again, it was overnight. It was, you leave on a Friday or you leave on a Saturday to go to an NFL town, and you're back on Sunday night. So, you missed one night of sleep. So it's not that big a deal. But
it's just something I've always thought of as important. It's one thing my dad was really good at, was being a dad, not a father. Like, he didn't just work. Like, I played catch with him. We ran routes. We played pitch and catch. He's the one that helped me play back. Like, he was very hands-on. So I have been very goal-oriented, but also, and I've been surrounded by people who are really good with enjoying their life, enjoying family, and being successful. So when an NFL player who's as good as he is, and Aaron Donald, is able to take a step back,
I admire that.
I think it's impressive. I think it's
impressive.
It's admirable, to be brutally honest, to be able to go, I'm this good right now, but there's so much more. And in life, we don't do that enough. Now, an organization that will leave you feeling like that each and every time, which it's funny, I let you guys do it because I haven't really had personal experience with them, but I've had personal experience the other way. God rest her soul, my grandmother had over a 5-6 year span health issues, got better, health issues again, eventually passed. But the communication aspect of it is such a frustrating thing. And we talk about it every week, the last month or so. And I guess because we sort of hit home with all of us in different ways. But, and I don't blame the doctors. I'm actually never mad at the nurses. I know they have a lot going on. But when you find an organization that actually goes out of their way to communicate with you, to me, that's like a godsend. And the fact that Catholic Health Services makes it so important that whether you're Defo, Tony Segreto, or John Anderson, you're going to know what's going on with your family member all the time, is imperative, integral, and amazing.
There's an old saying that the busiest man in the world has 5 minutes to call you or talk to you. It doesn't matter how busy you are. I'm going to go back. Again, my wife is in Michigan. Her family member is in the hospital, now in rehab, like Catholic Health Services, right? And she goes in to see the family member, and it's like, what the heck is going on? Blood pressure's out of whack. She's in pain, on and on and on. And Roseanne's looking around going like, did anyone notice? No. Did anyone try to call me? Well, no. Well, that's unacceptable. Unacceptable, right? It's your loved one. It's your family member, your mother, your father, whoever the case might be. Catholic Health Services isn't like that at all. They're exactly the opposite. When we talk about Catholic Health Services, we talk about people who are passionate and compassionate, people who are skilled, and people who understand when to push, when not to push, but what it will take to get your loved one back in shape and back living a normal life as soon as they possibly can. And in many cases, it happens sooner than that. And these are people who do it every day, and they make everybody feel special because they are special to them. They do it with love. They do it with a pure heart, because it's not something they do because that's their living. It's something they do because it's their passion. It's something they do because it's their vocation. It's something they do because they feel driven to pay it forward and take care of others who need them. And when you have a company like this, who has everybody built the same way, and I mean everybody built the same way. We talk about coaches today, and college coaches recruiting athletes of character. Mm-hmm. Catholic Health Services is about bringing people into the organization who not only are good at what they do or great at what they do, but they have character. And they have character because they love what they do, and they're going to take care of your patients and the patients that come into Catholic Health Services with the utmost respect and dignity. And they're going to make sure that the family is in total concert with what they're doing and that they know what's going on. Ladies and gentlemen, I tell you this every week, every day. If you have an issue, even if you don't, and you want to learn more, go to CatholicHealthServices.org, give them a call, ask them questions. They are here to help the community each and every day. Catholic Health Services, special people. We're grateful for them for being a part of Old School.
Well, and they do. I haven't dealt, God, thank heavens, I haven't had to, deal with them recently. We know Defo has, and you've done stuff, but I've dealt with the other perspective of just day-to-day stuff, and the
they get back to you.
The professionalism they have, it actually scares me a lot of the time.
It's incredible.
What? What? Okay, that was quick.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, there is I work with 3 or 4 different organizations. The University of Miami, for example. You call somebody at UM, they get back to you like within an hour. It's
Nice.
incredible. They're all amazing. Whether UHealth or whatever the case might be. I mean, just remarkable organizations, and Catholic Health Services is right up there, standing tall and standing strong.
Before we get out of here, you brought up Mario Cristobal. Defo sort of touched on the idea of this, and then I think it did come to fruition. Alonzo Highsmith was brought in to be, this is a new role. A lot of people who haven't been following college football closely don't understand. They're like, no, this isn't the Dolphins, it's the Canes. Yes, the Canes. GM, yes. GM is now a role because Alabama hired 150 coaches that every other school's like, oh, shoot. So now, yes, there's literally a GM. FSU has one. I'm sure Florida has one because Billy Napier has more staff than anyone in the country. Supposedly that means you're going to win. I don't know. But the Canes bring in Alonzo Highsmith, who's been with the NFL a long time. Like, did really good things with the Packers. I didn't realize he was with the Seahawks, so another winning organization. And they flirted with each other for a while, but Zoe sort of was like, yeah, sure, I'm in the NFL. Well, Cristobal, like he's done this entire offseason, makes the impossible possible, brings in Alonzo Highsmith to be in college. The Canes keep doing it, and
great move. Bringing
I wanted to ask you about this move before we move on, and you see with Cristobal.
Great move. I love Alonzo. Alonzo and I have stayed in touch. In fact, I talked to his daughter a number of times because she wants to be in the communications business. He had called me and said, "Can you help her a little bit?" And he was doing great in Seattle. He really was a really amazing evaluator of talent, an overachiever himself, a great athlete himself. Yep. But he was one of the number 1 linebackers in the country when he was recruited out of high school, right? He was one of the top linebackers in the entire country out of high school. And Schnellenberger gets him in and says, "You're going to be a running back." And he surprised Nebraska and put him in a running back role. And I think Alonzo is going to be great. He and Ed Reed together, I think they're going to be great for the organization in a number of ways. 1, their work ethic. 2, the history of what Miami is and what Miami represents. 3, the swagger without going beyond the bounds of what the swagger can be. Swagger is an attitude. Swagger is a presence. Swagger is, like, remember the Titans. They came out and they did their song and they knew who they were, and that's who I am, okay? I think he's going to be great. I believe that the excitement at Miami is real. I believe, and talking to Dan Radakovich, for example, the athletic director, he is dead set, making sure the facilities are upgraded, making sure that all of the sports are taken care of. Look at what Miami baseball is doing. Look what the basketball, both men and women, did. I think look what tennis is doing. My goodness, we are just on and on and on. And talking to Mario the other day, he's excited. I think he's tempered. I think that, listen, I'm not the Messiah. It's not going to change overnight.
Oh, right? Did he say that?
No, he didn't say that.
Okay,
no.
Okay.
I didn't. He did not say that.
Okay.
I'm saying that.
Okay.
But it's, he's saying, listen, this is going to take time. This is he did tell
That's
me
what I'm
that.
saying. Like, is he saying that?
Yeah,
because Canes fans are acting like it's done. And I'm like, guys, he's the right hire, but like.
Yeah. Listen, the ACC still got Clemson, still has North Carolina. Florida State's going to be a lot better. Yeah. Wake Forest is going to be good. Yep. I mean, let's go through that list of the ACC. It's not going to be
loaded this year.
Yeah, it's not going to be a walk in the park. So you got to have your game every day. Again, position competition. If a guy goes down, we better have a guy getting in there who can handle it. I think Mario's got great coaches. I love Charlie Strong. I love Frank Ponce. I think they're going to have, if they're going to be, I think we're going to see a team that plays hard, that's not going to make the mistakes we had last year. I don't think we're going to see, I'd be surprised if we see a lot of stupid mistakes. I would be shocked, actually. You're going to get a fumble. You're going to jump off sides. Yeah, all that. You're going to get a face mask, but you're not going to have it on and on and on that are going to just kill drives and kill drives and kill drives. And keep other drives alive. I think you're going to be a lot more disciplined, and I think we're going to see a much better product on the field. There's reason to be excited, and listen, I'm excited. I love Mario. If you hear him talk, He inspires people. He inspires organizations. I think he's inspired this team and this organization. I think he's inspired the campus, and I look forward to seeing what we can do. I really
He's
do.
definitely
I'm
inspired.
excited.
Definitely inspired South Florida fans. I'll tell you that. I haven't heard so much about the Canes since I was in college and FSU was falling down and Canes were contending for titles.
Listen, it's important. It's important for the state of Florida to have all three major schools. And please, UCF, please UCF. No disrespect to Florida A&M or Bethune-Cookman or USF. None of that. But when you have Florida State, and Miami, when all three of them are good, it's great for the state and it's great for college football.
Yeah, it's great for just the Florida in general. It brings attention to us that we haven't had in a while. This man brings attention wherever he goes. The one and only icon himself, Tony Segreto.
This was awesome. I actually got a chance to talk.
I'll make sure Defo knows that. Have a great rest
You're a great host. You're a great host.
I'm working on it.
And listen, people, listen, audience, this is not easy for Lubie to do. And here's why. He's not just hosting it. He's running the show. He's got to run the commercials. He's got to make sure our audio is good. He's got to make sure we're on when we're supposed to be on. He's got to make sure the guests are there when they're supposed to be. He's doing 9 zillion things. So any good thing that you see from him today is not just because he's a really good host, but because he does everything else so well. And congratulations to you to be able to handle it well like you do. You do it with class. And don't forget, you have a lot to offer every day. So it was an honor to work with you solo.
I'm sure. It's always an honor and a privilege to know you and work with you and call you a dear friend. Tony Segreto, have a great rest of your day, and we will talk soon, my friend. Thank you.
Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.
The one and only Tony Segreto, kicking it old school. Again, thank you to Texas Roadhouse Catholic Health Services. Thank you to Ed Garcia for finding time to join us, representing Texas Roadhouse. And Dave Hyde. Check out Swagger will be on November. We will talk to him a lot of times before Swagger about Jimmy Johnson. With Jimmy Johnson comes out. You could probably check that conversation out on 5 Reasons today. If you missed it, if you want to hear it again, we talked a lot about the Heat, talked about the Panthers, talked about the Dolphins. If you want to check out an interesting conversation, I'm going to have at about 11 o'clock, it'll be up each and every day we do, or most days, not each and every day, but most days we do exclusive content, not more national stuff on the Believe Network, BLEAV.com. Search After Hours. Today I'll talk with Georgia Durante, professional stunt driver, also was getaway driver for the Gambino family, and model. What a life Georgia Durante's lived. I will talk to her, female stunt driver, female getaway driver, coming up today on After Hours, and always each and every day right here. Just Google The Defo Show, DEFO. Appreciate everyone who tuned in today. I'll be back tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day. Talk to you tomorrow morning right here on The Defo Show, without Defo, with Lubie.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they done to my show.